Hi everyone, it's Kelly, writing consultant at New Mexico State University. In this installment of video genre guides, we'll look at professional emails. In this video, I'll discuss components of the professional email, including conventions of design and content. We'll look at examples to see the different approaches to professional emails based on the audience and purpose. For each email, we'll ask the same question. Given the recipient or recipients and given the purpose of the email, what is a fitting response? You should ask yourself the same question when you compose your own professional emails. The fitting response will inform what you write and how you write it. Let's take a look at the first example. The audience appears to be a coworker who is familiar with the project. The purpose of the email is to request feedback on a document. Let's look at how the writer constructs the email given her rhetorical situation. Professional emails always include a greeting and the name of the person you are writing to. The formality of the email and the relationship you have with the recipient will determine how you approach this. In this example, we see, "Hi Christine," as the greeting, suggesting a familiar relationship with the recipient. Next, the writer references a recent meeting that relates to the purpose of the email. We see that here in this sentence. She writes, "Thanks for meeting with me to discuss volunteer recruitment for next month's fundraising event. I used your ideas to locate a dozen more volunteers." And she writes this instead of jumping right into what she's wanting to ask. This sets up a particular familiar relationship. So again, depending on the formality of the email and the relationship with the recipient, that will determine how you craft that. In the next paragraph, she references an attachment. This is always a good idea whenever you have an attachment. Be sure to reference it in the email and be sure the attached document is the correct one and is named appropriately. So here in this sentence we see where she's referencing it, the volunteer schedule for the event, and here we have the actual attachment. And as you see, the document is called Draft Volunteer Schedule. This lets you know as the sender that you've attached the correct document, and it lets the recipient know that she's receiving the thing that you believe you're sending. Next, she makes her request for her reader to review the document and provide feedback. This is the action, what she wants her reader to do. This is a good idea as you compose your own professional emails. Clearly articulate what it is you want from your reader. She also includes a time frame for response. Given her constraints, this information is important so the reader knows she needs to respond within a given time frame. Again, which is a good strategy to use in your own professional communication, letting your audience, your recipient know the constraints that you're working under as well. Next, she provides an opportunity for the reader to ask questions here. And finally, she thanks her for her help before signing off her email. Be sure to always sign your name to professional emails. Given the relationship you have with the recipient will determine how you sign off on the email. This seems to be like quite a familiar relationship, and we know this just because Yvonne is providing only her first name. Regarding design, notice the font is professional in appearance, the paragraphs aren't too long, and there is space in between each paragraph. These are all conventions of professional emails, and they help with the readability of the emails. So you want to refrain from using bright colors or extremely large font because we want to keep it professional in appearance, and given what we expect out of an email, for it to be short, direct, quick, these design strategies help achieve that goal. I want to talk about one other component of this email, and that is this CC line. Notice that we've added a recipient to this email. So Yvonne is sending this email to Christine, who is the reader, the target recipient, the person who she's requesting an action from, but she also sends it to Sarah Smith in the CC line. The CC means carbon copy, and you'll use this line when the email's message needs to be seen by other stakeholders, even if the email isn't necessarily addressed to them. In this case, the content and the action of the emails are directed towards Christine, but Sarah, perhaps another event organizer, perhaps a supervisor, might also need to see this email and the attachment. So therefore, because Sarah isn't the target reader, but is somebody who should probably read, be aware that this communication is happening, she is added on that CC line. As you compose your own emails, consider who else might need to be notified and CC them on the email. In the next example, a college student is writing to an internship recruiter she met at a career fair in order to be considered for an internship. The subject line reflects this. She clearly states electrical engineering internship, which tells her reader the scope of the email. This is always a good idea to make sure that you're identifying the content of the email, so always have that subject line filled out. So let's take a look at the rest of the email to see how the writer responds to her rhetorical situation. First, notice the greeting is more formal in this one compared to the first example. The writer uses dear and refers to the recipient as Ms. Garcia, suggesting again the relationship is much more formal. Next, the writer recognizes the recruiter probably talks with a lot of people, so she reminds her how they met. Let's see this here in that first sentence. I spoke with you briefly at NMSU's career fair yesterday regarding the internship for electrical engineering students. This is a good rhetorical strategy, especially when you're communicating with somebody who you may have met once or twice, and so you might want to remind them how they know you or how they might remember you. So consider using this when you compose your own emails. Like the previous email, this writer also refers to her attachment, in this case her resume. The attachment is appropriately named so the recipient knows she received the correct document. Here it's labeled as Dover resume. Again, it's just a check to make sure that you have uploaded the correct document and that the receiver knows that the document she's opening is the one that you actually intended to send. The writer provides one last line thanking her reader, showing her eagerness for response. Again, with the formalities. And notice in this email, because of its increased formality, the closing is different. She writes sincerely here, which is a more formal closing, and provides her full name and contact information, as we see here. A lot of people use the signature, so this is something that you might consider doing if you have a title and contact information. It's a nice signature block to show the recipient of your emails, your title, your position, contact information. So do consider including and developing your own signature block and including that in these more professional emails. Okay, let's look at the final example. This is an email from a student to a professor asking for clarification on an assignment. To convey professionalism, the student addresses the professor as Doctor, appropriate title, and states what he has done before emailing to try to answer the question himself. I would highly recommend this when you are communicating with your professors, instead of asking simply, what is the homework assignment for next class? Show the reader, show the professor that you've done the work to try to figure it out for yourself before reaching out to that individual. So here you see the class is named specifically 10104. In the next sentence, the writer explains how they understand the assignment already. That way, that part isn't necessarily the part that needs to be clarified. here's where we start to see where the confusion is, the length requirement. And then the next sentence, the writer says, I checked notes, the syllabus, the assignment sheet, and I've asked a few classmates, but was unable to locate this information. So again, telling the professor how it is that you've already tried to answer this question yourself shows a particular level of initiative and professionalism. So this information is important to show that he is taking initiative and respects the professor's time. He's asking the question only because he exhausted his resources to try to answer his question. Another unique feature of this email is the way the writer describes his location as a student. He recognizes the professor probably teaches several courses, so he states the class and section he is taking just in case the professor teaches multiple sections of the same course. So we see that here, and again in the closing. Also notice, like the others, this email also has that subject line filled out, so the reader knows at least the scope of the content of the email. In all of these emails, notice they each have a greeting, and the style of the greeting depends on the formality of the email. Each email uses short paragraphs to convey the message and uses white space in between each section to increase the readability. Each email states an action. They articulate why they are writing. They refer to attachments if they include any. They each have a closing, and the style depends, again, on the formality of the email. They include relevant contact information for the writer. Each email uses complete sentences, avoids text talk and abbreviations, and is proofread and polished, again another way to convey professionalism. Finally, each writer pays attention to the recipient of the email and the purpose of the email. You'll want to recognize these rhetorical components as you write your own professional documents. Thanks for watching, and happy writing!